If you're watching, say hello, give a thumbs up right away. That really does help out the channel. But I'm going to just make some quick adjustments here. Oh, I didn't know I could do that. I could make myself like a little bit more light. Which should we go with? We're not going to do anything. We're not going to mess around with this too much. Or shall we? Should we just go hard on the effects for day one? Now, let's not do that. Let's just go live. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Rugby Muscle YouTube channel. I'm TJ, and today we are finally going to get back into the live question and answer. So if you've got a question, feel free to ask it in the comments below. If you're watching this post live and you're not watching this live, it's fine. Ask a question in the comments below as well, because it will be answered in the next live, because I'll go through them systematically in that order. Before we get into the questions, got a little bit of housekeeping. First and foremost, you might notice that if you've joined us on the lives previously and you're thinking, where's all the fancy Rugby Muscle logos and stuff? I'm recording this one on my phone, so we're actually a little bit behind with this stuff because the streaming software is obviously all on my laptop. The questions that I usually load up are on my laptop. The way to schedule it is through my laptop, but at the minute that's in the shop because it's, for some reason, on Tuesday, I think Tuesday morning, it just decided to not turn on. And so I was stuck there without it, and I've been stuck without it, but I promised you guys I was going to do a live. I need to get back into the routine of answering these questions and getting as much content, because it helps me shape the content that I'm creating for you guys by making more lives. Of course, if you haven't hit the thumbs up already by now, do that. And then also check out the links below if you're not a member of the Rugby Muscle Academy, or if you're not being coached, or if you're not a member of Team Rugby Muscle. All of that stuff where you can get a world-class strength and conditioning program delivered directly to you through our website, and you can adjust it to fit your schedule. You can make it fit whether you're in season, whether you're in off season, whether you're looking to gain size and strength, or whether you're looking to get fitter. We have options for all of those above, and we will be creating more guides throughout the year as well. So check all of that stuff out. Check out the academy. All will be linked. Hopefully, it might not be linked right now, but it will be subsequently linked in the description below, or you can just check out rugby-muscle.com. Do I have any more stuff? Yes, I do have another stuff. I do have another thing to say. I've recently released a new article on the website rugby-muscle.com talking about goal setting and how you can truly achieve what you want with 2022. I am a huge fan of goal setting, but not in a traditional way that most people do it. People rag on goal setting because same way that people rag on dieting. You rag on the thing because you think, oh, this never works, dieting never works, goal setting never works. No, it's because you do it poorly. If you do it properly, goal setting is unbelievably powerful. And I've set out a full article describing how you can do it. I've also added a sheet that for members to fill out on the academy. So if you read the article and you want to join, absolutely go ahead and do so. If not, wait till next week, where hopefully I'll have my laptop back from the shop and I'll be able to publish a video that I created that's stuck on the laptop, all about my goals and how I've been what I'm setting out for 2022, and how you can sort of measure up your goals against it. Not comparing like, oh, you're aiming for this and I'm only aiming for this. No, that's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is give you an idea of how I'm setting my goals and how I've kept them, maybe I'm keeping them smart, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, even though attainable and realistic are the same thing, and time bound. I might be doing that, but I also might be doing other things that you want to take note of with the goals. So I encourage you to check out that video next week. Otherwise, we've got a few questions, so let's get into those here, shall we? First and foremost, I posted this the questions thread a while back, and so this question is it's a little bit old, but it's really important. So he says, I'm a forward with a history of shoulder issues, mainly dislocation, and shifting around. It's been better because I have a lot of rear because I do a lot of rear delt and upper back work during the season, but I'm about to have a long off season, and I'm curious if I should try something different. In my off season, should I just carry on doing the rear delt and mid delt work to really secure my shoulders, or work a lot of front delt and chest as well? Work front delt, chest as well as keeping enough with enough rear delt to stay uninjured. That way, my front is stronger and withstand impact more. Or does that not matter? Should I really focus on strengthening and supporting my muscles like rear delt? Um, Great question. And I think like the way you phrased it, clearly you've put some thought into this. Clearly you've put some thought into this because you've done a lot of rear delt and upper back work, which has alleviated a lot of the shoulder issues. I would continue with that. I would make sure that you're continually keeping your shoulders fairly even. The problem with a lot of dislocations is usually because of an imbalance, and that imbalance is usually because of too much frontal work. So front delts get worked a lot with any sort of any pushing movement. You'll be working your front delts a lot. So whether you're doing bench press, if you're doing incline, or if you're doing overhead, especially if you're doing overhead, you're going to be working the front delts a lot. The more you work your front delts, the bigger they get, the more they'll pull your shoulder forward, forward, forward. So all of a sudden, and you'll see this with guys that just work mirror muscles, right? Their bodies or their upper body seems like it's hunched over because they've worked all this big muscle, and this big muscle is so strong that it just pulls on the joint, and then you end up with a bit of a bad posture, right? Therefore, you've introduced that upper back and rear delt work to pull that shoulder back. Perfect. That's what you should be doing. Don't go away from that. The more you, um, you should still now, like, if you're in a position where you're always injured because you're hunched forward, because your shoulders are out of place, it becomes an issue where you don't want to work any chest, you don't want to work any front pushing motion. You only want to work the back, and you only want to, because it's like an emergency situation. You want to pull your shoulders back with quite urgency. Now it sounds like that you've got your shoulders in a good place where they're fairly uninjured and they're fairly robust because they're in alignment, they're in the middle of your body. Great. Continue to work the upper back, continue to work the rear delts, but also now start to slowly add in some more pushing work. So not necessarily saying that you have to do it, 5 times a week, or load up with massive, overly strenuous chest sessions, but you should start to add in more pushing work. I wouldn't ever, in fact, worry about doing too much front delt work. In fact, I can't remember the last time. Um, no, I literally can't remember the last time I've given someone some specific front delt work. It's not necessary. Having a slightly bigger muscle there isn't going to lessen the impact of your hits. If anything, you just want to be stronger so that you're taking the impact on your terms. Um, and so, therefore, you would still want to do some pushing work. You would still want to do some either chest or vertical pushing or horizontal pushing, whichever pushing you want to do. But you want to make sure it's at least, I would say, 2 parts pulling to 1 part pushing. So when I'm talking about pulling, I'm also talking about, vertical pulls, horizontal pulls, that sort of stuff. But as well, we're looking at rear delt work. So rear delt flies, face pulls, those sorts of movements. In addition to that, I would talk about, or I would look towards doing IYWs. So on a bench, face down, IYWT. Lots of different, and there's loads of different rear delt stability work that we need to start to introduce, and shoulder stability work that we'd want to introduce from there. So you've got you're pushing and you're pulling, trying to be fairly even by this point because you can build both out. But whilst you're doing that, especially if you're someone that has had a lot of previous issues, you also want to look at overhead stability or shoulder stability work. So that will involve different sorts of carries. That can involve movements such as the IYWT, as I've already said. Any sort of banded work can help as well, but it kind of has to be um, it kind of has to be specific to what you're having problems with, right? So if you're finding that, and it only comes from testing. So if you're finding that you're doing a lot of overhead work and you're fine with doing the overhead work, then you probably don't need to build up the stability there too much. If you hold a dumbbell overhead and you're like, Jesus Christ, probably work that and do some overhead holds along with our overhead walking holds, those sorts of things. There is no one size prescription, so there is no definitive answer that I can give you, but that's sort of the three-pronged approach I would give you, right? Get back to that shoulder being fairly stable and aligned. Once you're back, then introduce the pushing work. Don't worry about delt work, but worry about doing, concentrate on doing, for every pushing movement, you're doing probably 2 sets of pulling movements, whether that's pull-ups or horizontal rows, or whether that's the rear delt specific work. And then finally, look at your specific sort of stability that you might need to work on within your shoulder joint. Usually, the being strong enough and being well balanced will take care of everything else, though. So I wouldn't worry too much. Next question. We have one on the live, I believe. So let me just check. Yeah, cool. So he says, not an S&C question, but what would you say is the best use for a player with very good genetics that's naturally big, fast, and strong? The question just disappeared. Naturally big, fast, and strong as far as position and roles go. I would say not to rest on it. Like, if you're already genetically really good, maybe it's not the strength and the fitness and the S&C work that you need to be doing. It's your skills. You need to be making sure that your skills are good enough. You don't want to be that player that's just a physical freak. You want to be an all-around freak. So off the top of my head, working skills at least 3 times a week. Even if it's just basic passing, basic tackling, all of your rugby specific skills, depending on what position you are, you can choose which position, or you can choose which skills you do depending on where you are playing. But I would do skill work 3 times a week. I say 3 times a week because it's a good intro. If I say every day, people get overwhelmed. Now, 3 times a week is fairly easy, because what you could do is, if you're practicing already twice a week, just show up early, 15 minutes early. That's a good time. That's a good amount of time to do some skill sessions, and then you can use those 15 minutes of skill work to try and filter into the stuff that you do within your rugby training. Then you've only got one more extra session that you've got to make, and it can be really basic. A lot of particularly amateur rugby players miss this fact. They rely solely on their Tuesday, Thursdays, their twice a week sessions to develop their skills. And you might slowly come along, but if you just add in one more session, right, that's 50% more focus you're spending on skills. Or even, you saying 50% doesn't do it justice, because actually you're spending this extra 50% of time on you and your specific things that you need to work on. When you're doing your team rugby sessions, there's a good chance that you're working on team tactics, you're working on the things that your team needs to do. You're working on set plays. Especially if you're a back row, you might just be standing around a lot of the time if you're doing scrum work for 30, 40 minutes, or if you're a winger and you're doing backs moves that don't even involve you, you might just be slowly running up and down the field, just watching your guys take it into contact and doing nothing. Like, 2 times a week of rugby team sessions isn't going to be enough, or isn't really going to progress you anywhere near to the potential that you can progress if you just do one more session or 2 more sessions alone, or with a teammate that can help you work on specific tackle skills. How often is it that we work on the actual specific technique of our tackles or of our rucks? Do we work it that much? Do we work it that often, or do we rely on our coach telling us that we don't want it bad enough, or that we want to hit harder, or that we want to try more, or that we're lazy, or we're weak, or we're wusses, or our teammate says that you've got to man up and you've got to hit it? I don't think that's a good time to work, to practice your tackling specific skills. Find that time yourself. So if you're already a bit of an athletic freak, focus on your skills. Way too often I see guys just completely forget about this. You'll get more rugby players that succeed and become a high level player because they're so good with their skills, because they're so good with their tactics and all that sort of stuff, that they actually, they will exceed the performance of someone that does, someone that is in really good shape. And that's coming from me, who is, I'm talking right now on the Rugby Muscle YouTube channel. I'm talking about, the whole, my livelihood depends on people developing their rugby strength and conditioning, but it is still limited, and you must understand that. And then from there, I would just, if you're someone, it sounds like that from the question that you're fairly new as well. So, on top of working your skills, don't worry about trying to be a leader with, yeah, that'd be what I say. Don't worry about trying to be a leader of your team. Just focus on doing your job as best as you can. Too often, I think we see ourselves as superior to our other teammates, so we want to worry. So we focus on wanting to be a leader. I think being a leader will come naturally if you perform at your best. If you're otherwise, if you just perform at your best and you focus on you playing your best and doing the best for your team. If you focus on being a leader, more often than not, it takes away from your own focus on yourself and how you're trying to perform. So I'd really urge you to focus on your own performance, which obviously is benefited by doing the skill work that I've already spoken about. Finally, two more things. With strength and conditioning, double down on your strength. So if you're someone that's already really fast, work that speed. That's going to be your differentiator. If you're someone that's really strong, keep staying fucking strong, because that's going to be your differentiator. It's going to how you're going to get through contact. And the other thing is, make sure that if you have glaring weaknesses, make sure that you work on them. So if you're someone that is really strong, you're already really strong, really fast, but you're unfit, do enough, man. Get fit, because that being unfit is going to hold you back. Likewise, if you're someone that's really fast and fit, do some strength work, because that, your lack of strength is going to hold you back, or whatever weakness there is. Like make sure that, bring that weakness right up. Make sure that is no longer a weakness. At the same time, again, double down on your strengths. And that would be how I'd approach everything. Okay, specifics, obviously, hit me up in the DMs and we'll chat. Cool. Next question: how to effectively communicate on the rugby field? Okay, this is a good question, and this is something that I can probably create a whole other video about. In fact, if you look for a previous video that I've created about how to enjoy your rugby and play your best, this would sort of file under that. To communicate effectively, you need to be fit enough to not be panicked about what's going on. I think it's a Vince Lombardi quote. He says, "Fatigue makes cowards of us all," and that is absolutely true. So if you are tired, if you're overwhelmed, if you're experiencing fatigue, you're going to be in a frantic place within your mind. If you're in a frantic place within your mind, if you're stressed, you're not going to communicate as best as you possibly can. So obviously, rugby muscle, right? We're talking about strength and conditioning. Be in the best shape you can possibly be. That is going to allow your mind to be at its calmest that it can possibly be, and therefore you're going to communicate. When do you communicate better? When you're really stressed and you're scared, and you're really tired and you're stressed out, and things just aren't going your way, or when you're relaxed and you're just chilling, sat on your desk doing a live Q&A. Even now, because this is this is a good example. This is perfectly, because this is the first Q&A I've done in months, right? I've lost my Q&A fitness. Therefore, I know that this video, I'm going to ramble a little bit. I'm going to not coherently tell you exactly in a nice, easy to digest order all the things that I want to say. And I'm not even going to think of everything that I want to say, because I lack this Q&A fitness. So therefore, I'm not as comfortable, I'm not as confident in doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Therefore, I don't communicate as well. If I do this every single week for 6 months, however, these videos will be much better, because I have much more fitness, and therefore I'll be able to communicate that much more effectively. Video of me down communicating to you, so it's different. If I was doing this whilst running, it would be even worse, particularly if I was really tired when I was running. So I would be better in a game of rugby by getting fitter, by getting stronger, by just being overall more comfortable in that. So that's it. How to sort of improve your communication. The other thing I would say on top of that is that if you're really how do I put this? If you're focused again, it's kind of like what I said before about being a leader. If you're focused again on everything that everybody else is doing, you're going to, not only like people that are your teammates or your teammates that you're focused on what they should be doing are going to rag on you as well. It doesn't, they're going to take it more often than not. They're going to take it the wrong way, even if you don't mean it to be the wrong way. It's something that I struggle with a lot. I used to moan a lot when I played. I'd moan at someone, "Why are you doing this? Why?" Instead, tell them what you're seeing and tell them what you think should be happening. Don't necessarily tell them that what they've got to do. Just tell them what you're seeing from the defense. Tell them what you're seeing as opportunities. Tell them what you're seeing as a defender, what they're trying to do, and bring them to the same solution that you're on. Therefore, it's a lot more easier for them to digest. They don't feel like they're being berated. They feel like, they're receiving positive affirmations and they're taking the actions themselves as to what they're hearing. So maybe I can expand upon that because this is more of a general Q&A. But if you want to know more, let me know in the comments below, and I'll create another video about real effective communication on the rugby field. Let's see on the live chat if we've got any other questions here. Hey man, is it possible to bulk mid-season? Absolutely. The problem with most bulking is going to be the same problem with bulking during the season. Most people, when they bulk, they add a pound a week, and before you know it, you've gained 8 to 10 pounds within a month. That is a lot of extra weight to carry around. And if you're doing that in season, right, you've gone from playing a game 1 month to 2 months later, you're now playing the exact same game and you're doing the exact same thing, except you're carrying around a 10-pound weighted vest because 2 months isn't long enough to be able to acclimatize you at that much extra weight. At the same point, like if you're gaining that fast, you're not gaining pure muscle, right? Muscle gaining is a slow process. You should be aiming to gain 1 to 2 pounds. I know it sounds like, unless you're within your first couple, maybe your first year or two of gaining muscle, you're looking to gain 1 or 2 pounds a month. That doesn't seem like a lot, but that's over 10 kilos in a year if you do that effectively. Or potentially 10 kilos in a year. That's a lot. That's going from 80 kilos to 90 kilos. You do that for 2 years, you've gone from 80 kilos to 100 kilos. You've gained, what is that, 25% of your mass on top of what you already go, or on top of what you already are. And 80 kilos isn't like small to start with, right? And if that's lean mass, that's the idea, right? We're not looking to bulk. We're not looking to gain fat really when we're bulking. We're looking to potentially accept that we might gain some fat because we're gaining muscle, but we're not trying to gain fat. So be careful when you're bulking in season because it's tempting to gain too fast, and then all of a sudden you've just got to cut, and you realize that the whole bulk was a waste of time, and then therefore the cut was a waste of time because all you've done is undo the bulk. And that's the problem that a lot of people find themselves in. If you want to gain muscle effectively, I've created a whole playlist how to gain muscle mass, hypertrophy 101, I believe it's called. If you just search for rugby muscle playlists, it will be there. But yes, is it entirely possible? Just taper your expectations a little bit. The other problem, obviously, is that you've got to manage your volume. If you're playing every single week, it becomes a little bit more difficult because you've got that. You've got the day before your game, you really don't want to be in the gym. Maybe even 2 days, you don't want to lift too heavy, but you can probably get away with a light session 2 days before a game and get a bit of a hypertrophy stimulus there. The other thing I would look at is potentially the day after a game, doing some accessory work, whatever you can. If you're not too sore, that is a fantastic idea. And even if you are too sore, like getting the blood pumping is a good idea. I don't think you're going to increase your recovery time or increase your road to recovery and make it more difficult by doing a few sets of extra arms or some leg extensions, some light accessory stuff the day after a game. I actually think it's going to enhance your recovery because you've got in and you've got the blood flow, and you've obviously added the extra weekly volume that way. So therefore, you're going to be able to grow muscle during that during the season, and therefore that's what you want. Cool. When is lack of mobility an issue? Um, hmm. That's a really good question, because that's not what people think, right? People think, I lack mobility, I suck. That definitely is an issue. It's not always an issue. You don't have to be like, everyone lacks mobility, right? You lack even if you're the most flexible motherfucker, you still aren't as flexible as a gymnast, But does it behoove you to become that flexible in order to improve your rugby? Probably not, right? So once we've understood that, we understand that everything is on a spectrum. So when is it an issue? I think when it is the only times it's an issue, as far as your performance goes, is when it inhibits a position that you would like to get in. So if your hips are so tight that you cannot possibly jackal for a ball properly, that's an issue. If your lower back so tight that you can't drop, and you're a lifter in the line out, you can't drop down to lift your jumper up, that's probably an issue. If you're tight that you can't rotate around and make a nice pass or something like that, maybe that's an issue. But that's about it, right? Lack of mobility isn't usually the issue. And I know already people are going to be screaming, but what about, this, if I can't get into a deep squat, or if I can't find myself in this position? Usually, lack of mobility isn't the issue. Lack of mobility is a sign of another issue that is occurring. And that other issue is 99% of the time a weakness in some area, right? So you've got to develop the strength. So it's not the lack of mobility; it's the strength that you've got to develop. If you can't, get into a deep squat position, is it because you lack the mobility to do it, or is it because I mean, it is, right? But how do you get better, and how do you allow yourself to get into a deeper squat? It's by squatting more. It's by doing that movement more and more and more often, and then your body will allow you to go into those positions because it understands that you're no longer weak in those positions. Likewise, what kind of similar to what we said about the shoulder stuff earlier, it's about, the shoulder comes forward, and you could say, yes, it's because of my lack of shoulder mobility, or you could say it's a weakness in my upper back and rear delts. Develop the strengths where you need to develop your strengths, and therefore mobility won't be an issue at all. And then also, when we're talking about being injured, that's again primarily what I would say is get stronger in the bit. Like, if your mobility lack of mobility isn't the problem, it's a sign of a deeper problem, which is your lack of strength in certain areas. So get stronger. Stability is also just another word of a specific strength. You talk about stability, like the strong, like who's going to be, if you put someone on um, a balance beam, who's going to fall the fastest? It's going to be really weak people that can't stand up properly, right? Get stronger, you're able to be more stable. Let's see if we've got another chat question here. How good's a Bronco? Peak condition. I really hope you're not trying to troll me. Bronco is not a good movement. I'm not going to go into it. I've actually got a whole video why testing sucks, but definitely the Bronco. It's not specific for rugby. Um, it's just people do it because the All Blacks do it, and it's kind of easy. It's I could think of, off the top of my head, I could think of like 20 different conditioning sessions or assessments that you could do that would be better and more appropriate for rugby than a Bronco. And basically, if you want to sort of question that, ask yourself, when in rugby do you run at a medium speed for 5 or so minutes at a time? You don't, right? Let's not do the Bronco. Okay, I think that ends up. I think that finishes out these questions. Actually, I was look to see more questions, but they're actually it's, goals that people have set and they've posted on my other posts. I will come back to this YouTube channel in 2 weeks and do another live Q&A. But instead, this one in 2 weeks will be themed around your goals, around what you want to achieve. So if you have any goals that you want to set out for 2022, what you want to achieve with your rugby and with your fitness, or with your strength and conditioning, or with your lifting, or with your life, whatever you want to achieve, put them in the comments below, and I will assess them, and I'll help them. I'm not going to like say, oh, that's a shit goal, you're never going to do it. I'm going to help shape them so that we can really together make sure that we're all achieving them. And then every quarter, going to keep us accountable by making sure that we will stay on this. So let me know those goals that you have in the comments below. If you've made it here and you haven't hit the thumbs up button or subscribed already, make sure you bloody do those two things. It really does help out the channel. And it helps you see, it helps me see, that you guys are enjoying this stuff, but it also just helps this channel spread, which allows me to make more and more content for you guys. Ask your questions that you have for the next Q&A in the comments below, and I'll see you. I don't know how to stop this. Don't know how to end this live video. I'll figure it out, and I'll see you in the next one.